The best way to mitigate risk, I think, is to choose small things.
But if they pay $39 per month, you get $1 million a year.
If you don't charge a subscription, you have zero churn. That's fantastic.
All these similar philosophies, ship fast, 12 startups, 12 months, they're all focused on small. We can't control many things. The only thing we can control is our input. We start with a time budget, time appetite, and they say, for this idea, my appetite is to spend 2 weeks full time. Great, high intensity mode.
Why am I eating pineapple and pizza then?
Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Dan.
Hey, good morning, Dan and Sandra.
Good morning, Daniel.
Good morning.
Today or this morning, it's morning somewhere. Maybe Australia. Usually it's morning in Australia. Today we have a very special guest, Daniel Vassallo, a big hero of ours, and then of, I think, most indie makers and entrepreneurs in the world. A little bit about Daniel. In 2019, he left a high-paying job at Amazon, $500K a year, and then he used his sabbatical time to kind of go out with a bang. He created Amazon CloudWatch Logs Insights, and then just went out through the door. And then next year, after he left, he was making $350,000 out of his own projects, and then went on to make $1 million in revenue in 3 years, which is pretty amazing for any measure, to be honest. And now he's running Small Bets, a community of almost 6,000. I think it's going to be a big party for 6,000 coming up soon. Tell us, Daniel, what is the best thing that happened in the past 5 years?
Oh, the best thing is certainly that I stumbled on this journey. I think, as you mentioned, sort of the employed life was treating me well. I was getting paid well. I had what probably would be considered a cushy job, despite the reputation that Amazon has. Actually, it was far from that reputation. And maybe because I was there for almost 9 years, I sort of was treated well, right? But I think something for a few years, to be honest, maybe it had been already 3 or 4 years. I think 2015 was the time that I think something clicked in me, that I realized, look, this life as a full-time employee just is going to wear me out mentally and probably even physically. And it sounds, again, maybe very, I'm almost exaggerating, because it certainly to my peers, it didn't look that way. And I'm sure many indie hackers and makers, it resonates with them, like the fact that I had to ask for permission to do things, that to take some time off, that I had to work on somebody else's terms. I think it's just not compatible with my personality, right? And I think I persevered long enough. I made it work long enough, but at one point, I think in 2018, you mentioned that CloudWatch Logs project, right? I had started that myself in 2016, and I really wanted to see it through, just not to leave the team sort of in the middle of something that I started, but I was really looking forward to having it launched and leaving. And I remember reflecting, should I maybe do another year? Because I had quite a bit of unvested stock that I was, granted but haven't received yet, and I was going to be losing. And again, rationally, it should have made sense to be honest, I felt a bit selfish as well. I have a family, I have 3 kids now, I had 2 back then, and there was a lot of money that was leaving on the table that I felt wasn't just mine, that was also part of my family. So there was a bit of that dilemma. But at one point I realized that, either I leave now or I won't leave probably forever. And I was already starting to feel that this is going to wear me out, right? It's going to take me in a bad place. And I couldn't imagine myself doing another year, right? So I left at the beginning of 2019. And I'm super, super happy that I did. I think in hindsight, I should have left sooner. We all try to think, maybe we should save a bit more. Maybe the timing is not right. But the timing is not really. I think, and this might sound maybe a bit crazy, probably I accumulated almost a bit of too much of a runway in terms of savings, which paradoxically, and again, probably many people saying this is crazy to think like that. But I think it probably harmed me a bit in being a bit too complacent in the beginning, because I thought I had so much time that eventually something will work, and I didn't have that sense of urgency. But once I started to realize, look, actually, if I don't do something, I don't start making some money, I'm going to wipe out all of my savings, and probably I'm going to have to go back to the place where I left, which I really, really didn't want to. Right. So, yeah, basically, I'm really enjoying this lifestyle. And I think now I treat everything as like, I'm trying to do things such that this lifestyle isn't taken away from me. Right? I don't have ambitions of grandeur. I'm not trying to build things that are scalable with high upsides. I'm not even trying to match or to meet what I was making before. Of course, I would like to make more money. Like, don't get me wrong. And I'm still ambitious, but it's not really the decisions that I'm making are based on what will help me continue to live the lifestyle that I'm living right now. That's where I'm spending more time with my family. I'm working on my own things. I'm working on my own terms. I'm setting my own prices. I'm choosing my own hours. All those flexibilities that many indie people, of course, appreciate, I'm sure.
You said such a good things, but I have to ask you, like, if you go back, before Amazon, you actually worked in a smaller company with like a smaller team. And then when you quit Amazon, I want to know, like, why didn't you go back in a smaller company or a smaller team? Why did you decide to actually kind of build things on your own and start your own business?
Yeah, because I think I realized that the problem wasn't really the company. I certainly considered at one point I was going to move to a different team, a different company. It wasn't the company. It was the full-time work arrangement, the 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, week after week, having to, again, like justify what you're doing, explaining what you're doing. I don't think, and I think it's important that because many people might think I'm saying this, that this applies to everyone. I think I've met enough people in my life that I'm pretty convinced now that are people who probably flourish and thrive in that structure, right? That they'd rather have the Monday to Friday, the monotonous, rigorous, steady structure. But I pretty much almost on the other extreme, right? Even now that I work for myself, I whether it's weekend or daytime or whatever, I wake up in the morning and just approach the day as a brand new, clean, blank slate. And, if it's sunny outside and the kids are home, I might take the day off and just spend the time with my family. If there's a good opportunity, I might, go high intensity on it. But I like that variability, right? I like the bursts of high intensity and periods of just wandering about. And I believe there's very few employers who can tolerate it. And I understand it. It would, because, I was a team lead. It would have been very hard to manage a team of people where, one of your team members is just, wandering about or not reporting any progress. Right? So I think it's just the structure. I think full-time work arrangements are incompatible with how I work optimally. I think I've proven to myself that I can persevere because I've done it, for almost 15 years, considering 9 years at Amazon and a few years before. But it came at a cost, right? At a cost where I like to compare it with, I was like a palm tree planted in like Alaska, right? Where my natural environment is in the tropical places, right? And, you can make a palm tree live in Alaska if you put a greenhouse and control everything precisely. Control the temperature, control the humidity, right? But it's fragile, right? As soon as there's something goes wrong, there's a crack in the greenhouse, the power goes out, it dies. And I felt the same way. I was like in the wrong habitat, right? And I think this is really my ideal habitat, right? The indie hacker type, right? Where, again, like certainly not VC businesses or big ambitious businesses, like where I'm independent. Independence is the key, right? Where I have a lot of control about what I do.
I want to ask, just in general, how many sacrifices do you feel like you need to make to create your own businesses and be successful? Do you need to be that guy that goes on a $50 Airbnb on a mattress on the floor? Is that required?
I think a lot less than what people think. I think what's important, in my opinion, is a sense of urgency. I think this is where I had my epiphany, where, look, I did the classical mistake, like almost everyone does. That I quit my job And then I had some idea, a light bulb moment related to my interests. I spent most of my time at Amazon building databases and building API services. And I sort of consider myself an expert in databases, API services. And I said, I've been programming for all my life. Why shouldn't I build a database as an API service for front-end developers? And I wasn't completely naive that I thought he's going to build it and customers will come. I started getting influenced by marketers and building in public and the sort of the getting attention, Gary Vee and other people. And I figured out the ingredients. But I think the big mistake that I did was thinking that this was going to be a predictable thing. A little bit like how I worked when I was an employee. When I was an employee, I was giving goals. We need to hit these goals. And you try to break down the goals into smaller steps. You reach the goals and then, you get promoted or you get a bonus or at least you keep your job. It was a predictable world. Right? It's like playing a video game. You collect the 3 stars and you
It's very linear. It's very linear.
Very linear, yes. Predictable, I think, is not necessarily always predictable. Like when you're an employee, sometimes you think you're going to get promoted, but you don't. But more or less in the realm of predictability, you tend to expect what you want. And I approached self-employment in the beginning the same way. I thought, look, if I build a great product and if I do the right marketing things, I get attention, build in public, build a following, and I build some credibility, then surely I will succeed. Right? I'm just going to do the right things. And I did.
This sounds so easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy. Right? I was super naive. I think I completely missed the huge amount of randomness, opacity, things that you can't understand, the complex systems of the market, why something works and why something doesn't. It's almost impossible to predict, right, I think. And I actually, to jump a little bit on a tangent, even when I was, because and then I was reflecting back, like even when I was on Amazon, like I was working in AWS, I started at AWS when there were like just 5 services, and when I left, there was almost 200, right? And I've seen the evolution of AWS from being something tiny for small developers, like a fringe thing, to becoming one of the biggest businesses in the world, used by pretty much everyone. But even from the inside, like despite Amazon having all the resources that you could imagine, all the money, all the cash, all the brand recognition, excellent engineers, business people, all the things that you could imagine you would want, the company had them. And even then, right, out of those 200 services that AWS has today, I'm not going to break my NDA or share any secrets, but only a tiny really make money, like a very small fraction. And you start thinking, how come someone with all that information, all that data, all that resources, all the benefits, all the advantages. And now I start to realize that business is much more random than it seems, that whether something works or not relies on human behavior, whether it resonates with people, whether the market really understands it, pricing, the competition, all things that you can't really measure. And I think that's what I missed. Right? So I spent the first 9 months, in this whole building a product called Userbase, which still exists, right? But I did the typical problems. I would just immerse myself into it. I was doing stupid financial decisions, like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, but since I was treating it like a big deal, this is going to be my life's work. For example, I hired a lawyer.
Mark Zuckerberg, basically.
Yeah, basically. I was just, I hired a lawyer, for example, to write my terms and conditions. And I spent like $2,000. I'm embarrassed now to say that, but back then, I thought my reasoning was almost logical. Like, yeah, it is going to be something so inconsequential to my life. Why not just spend some money now? I'm going to spend it anyway, eventually. Why not do it right in the first place? And I hired some people to help me because I was getting impatient. And look, I got a lot of attention. I was building a following on Twitter, had about 10,000 followers. When I launched it, I was #1 on Product Hunt. I was on the front page of Hacker News. My launch tweet got like 500,000 impressions. It got liked by Paul Graham of Y Combinator. I got public endorsements by the CEOs of Vasallo and Netlify. Like I was getting all the signals that I wanted, lots of validation, that quote unquote. I did this like validation now. Maybe we can talk about it more. But eventually, right, it turned out that this product has customers, still has, but it's only making about $10,000 a year, not a month. Right? And considering how much effort I put into it and how much money I spent, probably it will never recoup what I've spent, both financially, let alone the time. And sort of that gave me a big, I went through a small crisis of anxiety, I have to say. That was very brief, maybe 3-4 days, where I literally was waking up at night and barely sleeping. Like, what am I doing? 9 months already
This
passed.
is worse than the gig at AWS then, right? It was getting there.
It was, I mean, I was confused, right? I mean, basically, because 9 months passed in a blink of an eye, and I had quite a decent amount of savings, but it wasn't unlimited. I had maybe 4 or 5 years savings, right, which was certainly good, but, you know, I almost wiped out a quarter already. In a blink of an eye, that I barely sort of saw them coming. And I realized, look, if I don't do something and I keep doing this, going this path, very soon I'm going to spend another year and another year, and then suddenly I'm out of savings, and then I'm going to have to go look for a job again, back where I started. And I think that bit of anxiety, I think, suddenly opened my eyes, because then I started thinking, okay, look, I don't really care about user base, actually, right? What I want to do is just maintain this lifestyle, as we were talking about before. I was enjoying this flexibility, and I started thinking, okay, what do I need to maintain my lifestyle? Basically, I need to pay the bills, right? I need to pay my mortgage, the utilities, the important stuff. So I started to work backwards from that. Like, what's the easiest way for me to, you know, make like $2,000 this month, just to start as a smallish goal? And I started thinking about these things, like these small wins, and like taking a freelancing gig here, doing a small product here, nothing with any ambition that this is going to be my life's work or something that's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just, I want to pay the bills this month. Then next month, I'm going to try to pay the bills again, and then the next month again. And as I started doing this, what I started to realize that actually these small wins, first of all, every single month was becoming a bit easier than the previous one. You learn more, you learn about more what works, what doesn't, what I'm good at, what I'm less good at. So that you learn more about the market, what is more likely to work, and so on and so forth. You build more reputation, more credibility, you get more contacts, build an audience. I had ever-growing customer list, and so on and so forth. And then sort of, I think what I started to realize is that actually, right, because it's easy, many of us like to think, you know, I'm doing something for the long term. Yeah, we like to say that, yes, I'm building for the long term, you know, I want to succeed in the long term. But I started to realize that probably the best way to succeed in the long term is to succeed in the short term. Like, you know, there's these sayings, you know, to thrive, you must first survive. You know, I'm a big Formula One fan. You know, to win the race, you have to finish the race. Like, the order is important, right? You can't die, right? Because nothing, I mean, metaphorically speaking, right? I mean, whether it's in business or in racing or whatever, the order matters, right? So these small wins were basically not only keeping me alive financially, but they were also opening new opportunities. Right? Yeah. But they were also opening new opportunities for me. And actually, now I say, look, the things that I'm doing now, or even the things I was doing last year and the previous year, I would have never imagined in a million years. Like, if I locked myself in a room and I started brainstorming all the things that I could be doing, I had to stumble on these, right, by doing these small projects, small experiments. Right? I wouldn't have stumbled into the creator economy, doing products, courses, communities, all this stuff. It was really just happy accidents, bouncing into random stuff. And
it's
this
really,
is like
really interesting. Sorry to interrupt. That
no.
Mark Liu said basically the same thing, that the way he arrived at his ideas was that with each project, he would see a problem and he would solve it in the next one. And that's how it's snowballed.
I think if you start studying successful creators, entrepreneurs, I think this is a very, very common theme. I remember the creator of Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS, Adam Wetton, probably he was one of the first people who I heard him say this, and I was following his journey quite closely. I respect him and out of curiosity. And one time I remember he saying, I would have never in a million years imagined that I would be working on a CSS framework. Right? It wasn't where he started, it wasn't what he was trying to do, but randomness, right, takes you to different things. And I think it's important to embrace randomness. This is, I think, what Mark Liu does really well. Peter Levels does this really well. Many others, Danny Postma, many others. Tony Din, for example. Lots of small projects. I think this is what this mentality of small bets, ship fast, 12 startups in 12 months, whatever, gives you is this embracing the randomness of things, right? You try different things. Some things work, some things don't. And I really believe that this is what I try to, hopefully convince people that the right way to self-employment, entrepreneurship, in the hacking, whatever you want to call it, isn't this predictable thing, right, where you think light bulb, you lock yourself in a room, light bulb moment, I have an idea, I'm going to work hard on it, put it on the market, cross fingers, and something will happen. But it's really this embracing of, and which, by the way, when you think about it, again, to be maybe a bit more philosophical, this is not that different than how VCs work, how book publishers work, how even movie studios in Hollywood work. There's a great book by a guy called R. Devaney called The Hollywood Economics, who studies the Hollywood economy and basically concluded that almost nobody knows anything in Hollywood. Like if you try to ask directors or CEOs of movie studios to predict which movies are going to be the most profitable, nobody has a clue. That we think we know that in hindsight that some movies are going to make it, but when you look at the profit, which is the most important thing, it's really hard. And when you think about it, where is it hard to predict whether movies are going to be successful or not? It's hard because it relies on human behavior, right? For a movie to be successful, you need people to go to watch it in the theaters, and they'll be so impressed that they go home and tell all their friends about it, and the friends come and they also multiply, bring more people, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, nobody has figured out human psychology's source code. Right? It's just a complex thing. It's like the weather. That's why we have the chaos theory, the butterfly flaps the wings in the Amazon forest and causes a tornado somewhere else. Same thing with human behavior, right? We're just complex. And going back to why even AWS, despite all the resources and everything we mentioned, even AWS struggles, right, to put successful product after a successful product, is because even with all the information, with all the data, with everything else, you're relying on human behavior at the end of the day, right? And I think the same thing for us. I think we're fooling ourselves if we think we're some visionary that we figured out a formula for success, right? I think the most reliable way of succeeding here is to be humble. I think, like, I see this a lot in, like, for example, Mark Liu, Peter Levels, right? They try things without a lot of expectations. Of course, they have a hunch, that you always have a hunch, or at least the hope that this has some legs, it has some potential, but you're not really putting all the bags in it. So just like, think about VCs, right? Despite how much they think highly of themselves. If you go and pitch your startup to them and you impress them so much, they say, what is the most amazing idea that I've ever seen? Surely you're going to succeed. They're never going to liquidate their entire fund and go all into you. That just wouldn't make sense. They might say, right, yes, this is, and they might believe it, right? But they're prudent investors. And I think we're also investors of our time. Like, I really like to compare myself with VCs, that I think of myself as a VC for my own ideas. Instead of investing capital, I'm investing my time. We get 24 hours in a day, right? Time is as finite and as scarce and precious as money, right? And, what's the best ROI that I have for spending my 4 hours today, right? And sometimes it's putting it in an existing project. Sometimes it's starting something new. I really liked when you had Mark, I think you asked him whether he's still building new apps despite having a big success now. And he said, yes, absolutely. And I love that, right? And I think even if you're not building, like I now personally, I'm not building something new, but I'm still with the radar on, waiting for opportunities to pounce on things, even though I also have a successful thing that is dwarfing everything else. But I just want to continue to build like that, yeah.
Sorry, but how it's possible that with your background, you didn't jump in the VC world?
No, I think I immediately, not immediately actually, I think, when I mentioned at one point, something clicked in me that I realized, full-time employment wasn't the right thing for me. I think the default was the Y Combinator part, whatever. But very quickly, I think I got convinced that I would end up in the same situation, beholden to different people, probably even more restricted, because, when I was employed, at least I could give my 2-week notice and forget about the business and forget what I was doing, and that's it.
Now you need to give the 2-week notice to yourself, or what? Yeah.
No, well, I mean, if I were to get investors involved and I have strings attached, and maybe not necessarily contractually obligated, but morally or ethically or whatever, it's not like somebody gives you $500,000 and 2 weeks later you say, I'm fed up of this idea. I'm just going to, I'm going to shut everything down. I mean, maybe you could do it. You have you don't want to let people down. Right? Nobody wants to let people down. So I very quickly realized that would probably even worse than employment. And then I started looking at the odds of success and sort of personally, I think, I'm not against VC in general as a finance instrument. Elon Musk raising VC to build SpaceX completely makes sense. But I think especially the small SaaS businesses, right, where you just have an MVP and you try to go to this go big or go home route. I think it's neither helps the founders, neither the customers, and I think the only people who get to benefit from this is the VCs themselves, right? Because the VCs basically they operate in a completely different world, right? It's like they care about the portfolio, right? I mean, it's like I look to compare with this analogy, right? Imagine you're digging for a hidden treasure underground. Right, you know that there's some treasure hidden in some area and you're digging. You want to find it. It would be very foolish if you pick one spot and you keep digging hard and you keep digging and you keep digging in the same spot and you buy a new shovel and you work 40, 80-hour weeks digging. It would be very foolish because if you pick the wrong spot, no matter how hard you dig, you're never going to find it. But at the VC level, it doesn't really matter. Right? Because if you have a portfolio, a company of people digging, and you spread them around, eventually all of them will strike gold, even if all of the others sacrifice themselves. Right? So eventually all of them will find the treasure hidden close to the Earth's magma, which will be full of gems. And there you go, right? You make it big. But what about the individuals? The individuals are experiencing a completely different thing, right? And I don't want to be a bat in somebody else's portfolio. Right? I don't want to be one of those soldiers in the army of the VC. I want to be my own VC. That's why I like to compare that analogy. I want to have my own 12 things, right? I want to have my own portfolio of projects. And then those things, yes, I treat them more like cattle rather than like pets. If some of them die, whatever. And it's something actually I take a lot of care about because I think it's another insidious trap that we attach too much. Look, I want to be proud with what I put out in the markets, and I have lots of, I think I have a high bar of ethics and standards and principles, whatever, but, this business at the end of the day, right? Whether something works or not, it's what it is. And maybe this thing doesn't deserve my attention anymore. And I fear that if I attach too much of my identity to it, it will start to jeopardize my rational thinking. Oh, it's my pet, my baby. I don't want to feel like that. Right? So,
you actually said something very interesting that I want to touch upon. Selfishly, I kind of had this in my notes too. And it's specifically around freelancing. And I remember one of the posts you've made way back, where freelancing was maybe 25 to 30% of your revenue. And I found that, so it was a way for you to diversify the revenue streams, and you had quite a lot. Did you stop doing freelancing, or do you still take some gigs?
So I'm not doing any right now, but if I find a good opportunity, I would take it. Look, that's another mistake that many people do. It is believe that they don't want to trade time for money. Like, what if you're getting paid $10,000 an hour, just to put an exaggerated number? I would take that, right? But what about $1,000 an hour? I would also take that. I think that's a good rate. $500 an hour. I would take it as well, personalized, even 250. Right?
You're gonna get a lot of DMs now.
Yeah. No, look, I think the idea that you shouldn't say time for money is quite foolish, because if the ROI is good, right, leaving that money on the table, and I think this goes back to, again, this fallacy that you should only build things that scale, that can work on their own, that make money in my sleep, blah, 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 right? And I think you're not just leaving money on the table, but you're also leaving opportunity on the table. Look, initially I started doing freelancing, honestly, just to pay the bills, right? So when I mentioned that I had my debt crisis of anxiety, the first dollar, in fact, that I made as a self-employed person was through freelancing. I literally started thinking, how can I make $1,000 this month? I went to the contact list on my phone, and I said, who do I know? And I found somebody close to the end with the V's, who I knew had started a startup, and a while back told me if I knew any programmers, let me know. And I texted this guy and said, look, what if I help you take some things off your backlog, and maybe I do 10 hours, 20 hours a month, not even a week, right? Just very, very fractional, right? I just do a little bit. And he said, yeah, absolutely. He set me up, and I did that for about 8 months, I think, right? But then the next best gig that I had, I was working with Gumroad as a fractional product manager, right? I was helping Sahil, the CEO, where our arrangement was, we called it quarter time, right? So I had sort of committed to about 2 hours a day average, right? 10 hours a week, more or less, fully remote, on my own schedule, right? Again, sort of without any of the, Gumroad was very, very lean, no meetings, no sort of nonsense. And I did this for 2 years. It was a super great arrangement. And to be honest, I would have continued to do it. The reason I stopped was because eventually Gumroad grew big enough that it sort of, I couldn't keep up with this sort of fractional arrangement. And I really didn't want this to become a full-time job or anything like that. I just loved the fractional part of it, right? And actually, I think maybe that's one clarification I would do with freelancing. I don't want to get into some other, full-time like thing. I want the small things that give me more optionality. But yeah, absolutely. The Gumroad gig was paying me $10,000 a month for a couple of years, working 10 hours a week. Great arrangement, right? So and when you think about it, for example, then I had some success with a cohort. This is actually how the small bet community started, which again is another example of randomness and how destiny takes you in random places. This didn't start a community, like it didn't start anything close to what it is right now. I started doing this 6-session live course on Zoom. And basically all these ideas that I talk about, just how Peter Levis talk about his in the hacking stuff, and Mark talks about his ship fast methods. I sort of had this small bets philosophy, I was calling it. And in 2021, I said, I offered to my audience, I'm going to organize 6 Zoom sessions, 1 hour and a half each over 2 weeks, $375 a seat. And long story short, these sort of filled up. I was opening cohorts of 25 seats each. And when you think about it, this is not a product, right? This is also trading time for money. I did the math, right? I was making, I don't remember, $18,000 per cohort, and I was spending, 9 hours, and it turned out to be whatever it was, and maybe not a bit more than 9 hours because preparation, whatever. And I thought, this was a great hourly rate. I'll do it. If I were to do this for the rest of my life, I would be happy. I'm enjoying it. It's not taking me too much time. It's good money.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you that, how is to run a community of 6,000 people?
Yeah. So, is it for managing people?
Managing, just managing, and that idea, How do you know, like, how much do you know these people? How much do you need to know in order to
No,
kind
it's
of like,
something, the way I think of it is, I think it's a subset of my Twitter audience. On Twitter, there's already a community that forms. When you think about it, you start seeing familiar faces under your own tweets. And I know these guys. Like take Mark, for example. I never spoke with Mark face to face on video, but I feel like I know him a little bit. I just from our interactions under each other's tweets. And many people like that. And I think what happened with the small biz community is that it's another walled garden place, right, where people paid a small fee one time to come in. And then there, again, like this started purely as a course in the beginning, right? And I had a Discord server, and we used the Discord server just to talk about things related to the course. But eventually people started asking questions about, I'm doing this. Do you have any feedback? I just made my first $1. I'm so happy. And people supporting each other and so on and so forth. And look, 6,000 people, there are 6,000 members, right? But the fact that it's a one-time membership fee, the activity comes and goes, right? So what's interesting is that because I don't charge a recurring fee, nobody can really leave, right? There's no churn. It's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can never leave.
Yeah, if you don't charge a subscription, you have zero churn. That's fantastic.
But look, this might sound like a sort of cheesy thing, right? But it's actually, I think it turned out to be very important for the business because you have to, I think you have to be honest, right? I mean, life happens, like people are into, I've started this in 2021, right? Now we're in 2024. Many people who joined in November 2021, they got a new job, they had a baby, they got married, they got new things happening. They're not thinking about small bets or the community, whatever. And if I was charging a monthly fee or probably even a yearly fee and they haven't been active for 6 months, almost certainly they would have canceled. Right? And once they cancel, basically the relationship with them ends, right? I'm not supposed to email them again. They're not my members again. Right? They're not my, they left. Right? We broke our agreement. Right? They're in my do not contact list.
But do you secretly wish that you charge them monthly?
No. So I never charged anyone monthly, right? So, but what I found interesting is that what is happening, the dynamic that is happening here is that lots of people were active like 2 years ago, then they disappear, and then suddenly you see them again. And when they come again, because they remember or something happens, they get laid off, for example, and say, I want to start taking this seriously now. And when they come back, sometimes they talk about the fact that they're in the community. They go on Twitter and say, I just attended this class, or I met these people, or I had this call with this guy or with this person, and so on and so forth. And they bring word of mouth, right? The fact that nobody churns, right? It's basically an increasing list of people who I can still get in touch with, who can still work for me in terms of spreading the word of mouth, talking about the community, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's a trade-off, right? Because you don't make more money out of the members, right? But when you think about it, there's many businesses in the world and the general economy that work like this, right? You go to the supermarket, you don't get charged recurrently, right? You're expected to go again and buy something else. I forgot how we started. The question was that maybe I took it too much to attention.
I love it. No, it was it was how you manage the 6,000.
Managing. So managing. So we recently moved from Discord to Campfire, which has been working really well for us. There was something always annoying me with Discord, and we chose Discord just because it was the obvious thing. I think you guys as well have a Discord server, right? If I'm not mistaken. Two things really annoyed me about Discord in particular. First of all, the fact that it's a gaming platform and you get pop-ups about, some Minecraft event or whatever, which it was tolerable, right? You could sort of ignore it. It was a bit distracting, but okay. But the most annoying thing was that it was easy for people. It encouraged anonymity, right? Most people were just under the username. Like when you sign up for a Discord account, you're not told or prompted to enter your name. Right? You have to go to some setting, and if you change it for one server, it doesn't apply to your server. So I was finding, on Discord, we had these 5,500 people, lots of activity, but you don't know who you're talking to. There are just a bunch of usernames, and you might have some interesting conversation with someone. It's just some cryptic, lowercase username with numbers and whatever. There was a bad and negative atmosphere. I think not negative and sort of toxic, right? But just like there wasn't that wholesomeness of connectivity where there's the photo, there's the name, you can follow them on the social media and so on and so forth. Campfire basically fixed that. So it's just a very subtle thing. The fact that, it's still, if you want to be anonymous, you can still put whatever you want, right, in your name, but almost everyone has their name, their picture there. And it just feels more connected, right? And the activity levels radically improved. Like we were getting, 15, 20 messages a day, which sounds very tiny when you think about it, right? For 5,000 something members on Discord. Now on Campfire, we're getting 400, 500 regularly. And we've made this switch about 2 months ago. And I was thinking it's going to start diminishing because of the hype in the beginning. It's actually improving that. And maybe you might say, number of messages per day is not the right thing to measure, but just, one other interesting thing that Campfire is allowing is that anyone can create rooms. And initially I was very concerned with this because in Discord I was always like, we should create a room for a channel for books and a channel for AI. And I was always thinking, I don't want too many channels that they'll be dead. They look dead, they look inactive, not too niche. And I was always saying no to almost everyone. Now in Campfire, it's the complete opposite. Anyone can create everything.
How was the move from Discord to there, this transition?
So prudently, we've been trying Campfire since January. We got accepted in the beta, and I think I was one of the very first paid customers of Campfire. And at one point, I just invited a few people, actually, without announcing anything broadly. I went on Discord and said, we're testing Campfire. I didn't tag everyone or whatever. Whoever happened to be there in the room, in the general room, then a few of them, maybe 100 people, came to Campfire. And we kept running this for probably 3 or 4 months because we actually customized Campfire quite a bit. Nothing that you couldn't live without, but we started this. Campfire, I believe the problem was that it was built primarily to be a company Slack replacement, a workplace where you trust everyone, where you know who the people are, right? And I think for a community, you need a few other things to show that the place is active, right? Because you don't necessarily know everyone, right? To be able to, sometimes not everyone logs in every day, to know where you left off, those kinds of things. So we customized a few other things. So we spent these few months just improving things until we felt, this actually is starting to feel good enough. And then, we just went on Discord and tagged everyone and say, look, we're going to stop being active on Discord, eventually turn it read only. We're super happy with Campfire, please move over. We sent an email to everyone. And about half of the people moved with just 1 or 2 announcements. I actually think of doing another push sometime this week to try to, but again, this is part of, I have lots of members who joined 2.5 years ago, right? Who forgot who we are, whatever. So actually I'm pretty satisfied with 2,700, I think, that I have on Campfire right now. And again, it doesn't look like there's 2,700 people talking at the same time, right? Because
I got the sense from other people in small bets that it went very well. A lot of people said that when you began the transition, it kind of felt like the original atmosphere in small bets, because on Discord it was a little bit too hectic. And then
which is crazy, right? Because the activity was a tiny fraction, less than a tenth. Campfire, even me, who's, I try to catch up and read everything, I struggle sometimes, right? Because there's so much things happening. So it's actually more hectic, but it doesn't feel as hectic. It's really interesting how a tiny change in software again, like basically, Discord is a fascinating piece of software, very sophisticated. The mobile app is quite good. It's very feature rich. All these features with video, audio, whatever. Campfire has none of that. Like it's a piece of software that 37 signals produced in like 3 or 4 months with 2 developers. Bare minimum, the basic stuff for chat rooms. Chat room, it almost looks like IRC from back in the day, right? Basically, right?
Yeah. So you have to align expectations a bit.
Basically. Yeah. But most people don't care about the bells and whistles. Right? So actually, what they care about is this intrinsic vibe, right? And I think Campfire has this feeling like it reminds me a little bit like the Messages app on the iPhone. Like everyone can use it, even my grandma, who is computer illiterate, right? But can send a text and understand what the things are, right? And Campfire has that thing. It's so simple, nothing popping up, no buttons, no gears. And that combined with you see the faces of people and the names of people, and you can click on them and you can see their social accounts and you can follow them. And I think that 2 ingredients, which by the way was another customization we added, that we added social accounts, social profiles, and so on, and so on, which helped a lot. But yeah, no, the vibe. There were a few people who complained again that you can't please everyone. One of the complaints usually is that people are familiar with Discord and they're accustomed to open it, and you have one app for like most of communities. With Campfire now, you have another icon on your phone.
Yeah, just
or
another
place.
Tab. Yeah,
another place. So there's that. Probably I would say that's maybe the biggest downside, that you have to convince people to open either a new tab or a new app. And there's some friction there. But it wasn't as bad as I feared. I think most people, I believe, I haven't really studied this well, but I think most people use Campfire from the web, from desktop normally. There is the app, you can install it, whatever, but they treat it like, how you might open Hacker News in the morning to check what's happening. Many people who are active open our Campfire in the morning and say, oh, what's happening? Here's some of those that I tend to look at. They interact and so on. And that was probably, I think, one of the best things that happened in 2024, which landed on our lap, like we weren't expecting it, was just Campfire. Like because the group, I was almost giving up on the group chat. Small Bets had evolved to a place where the product became, because remember, I started me as a course, doing a course myself. Then I was focusing on the Discord server. But I felt when I was promoting the Discord server hard, I was almost feeling I'm under-delivering, right? Because it was actually the easiest thing to sell, believe it or not, especially in early 2022. I think there was so much, maybe you guys noticed this as well, so much of a demand for people who wanted to belong in a community, that it was so easy to sell. Like, here's exciting things are being said here, pay $185 one time, and you get access. I had the best selling months during that period. But then I was feeling, actually, when I was trying to walk through the first-hand experience, it was so overwhelming that many people were buying it. Yeah, okay, they check in Discord, they scroll to a few things, then they close the app and then they never come back, right? Because it's just, they don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. You see again, all these anonymous accounts, they're not, I didn't promise them something untrue. I didn't mislead them. It is the server, and it was very, you see activity, right? It's not dead, but it just didn't feel right. So then I transitioned, like I repositioned Small Bets to be mostly focused on events, right? So we were organizing these, and we still do, these live classes, right? So it became the main course, and everything else was just almost a bonus.
Yeah, then
I was inviting.
It's not as important to
this exactly. This was just there as an auxiliary thing, right? So the main thing was, and this would turned out to be a big operation, right? Like basically almost every week for quite a long time, I was inviting an expert, right? On SEO or on YouTube or on Twitter or on some other thing on how to make money on this or that or e-commerce and so on. And for the members who have these live Zoom classes, they can be in the same room with the expert For example, next week we have Arvid Khan, right? You might know him. He's going to be talking about podcasts and market and building a media business and so on and so forth. And it's nice for people, right? Because they're there with Arvid in the same room. They can raise their hand, ask him questions. This worked really well, right? For a long time. And this I didn't feel like was under delivering. I actually felt I was over delivering because people were seeing the list of events, signing up, paying once, and then the list of events kept growing and growing, and the catalog. So they felt like it's the gift that keeps on giving. However, this was expensive to run. I was paying these hosts $1,000 per event, right? So I spent over the course of small bets, I think about $150,000 in just guest speaking fees, which it's fine, right? It's still profitable business, right? But it's still something.
It's a sizable amount, yeah.
It's a sizable amount. Not to mention, it's operationally organizing the dates. I want to be there in the class. I moderate, right? Sort of moderate the chat like it was. There's always lots to do. But I think the problem that's happened over time, especially recently, and this, it's one of those things that is hard to explain, right? I've been running this since early 2022, right? For about 2 years, or actually more than 2 years now, this live classes program. But the attendance rate started to diminish drastically, right? Whereas we used to be getting 100 people plus live per session. Now, if we get 25, we consider it like, wow, good turnout. And we've been having some classes where we only have like 11 people show up. And we're starting, we're spending so much time, effort organizing this. And it's very hard to know why, right? Because actually, so I can A/B test, I can remove lots of variables. For example, I ran a class about Gumroad, for example, last December. And it had like 100 people, 125 people join live. And I ran the same live class maybe 5 months later in May of this year. And between those 2 dates, over 1,000 members had joined because I had a very successful Black Friday campaign, and sort of first quarter was really good. I think about 900 something people new who hadn't certainly been in the first class. But then I only had like 20 people join live in the second one. And this was happening with many different classes. So now basically I'm at a point again where I'm reconsidering, repositioning. This has been the story of small bets, adapting to the markets, right? And I'm really now focusing on constantly adapting. That's how I think of myself. Like, what does the market want? Can I deliver? What are people getting value from? And right now, I really believe the Campfire is where the value is happening, right? And I suspect, personally, my own speculation is that we live to the COVID era and the post-COVID era, where there was lots of demand for live interaction, live classes. Cohort courses had their own thing. And I think many people have, in general, have lost the appetite to attend live classes. They're back to their usual schedule. Many have returned back to the office. They're busy again. There's an abundance of free time. So now 2 years ago, you see a live event with Arvid Khan happening in 15 minutes, you get the reminder on your phone. People were jumping on it. Oh, amazing. No, I can watch the recording later, right? And sort of this is one of the pressures, right? You just always adapting. Whereas Campfire is the opposite now, right? It's really picking up. And I'm seeing people that are more interested in getting advice from others just by tagging the experts. Right, tag me or tag Arvid or tag someone, right, and they reply asynchronously, maybe a day later, and I think that's working even better. So,
Daniel, you seem like laser focused on small bets. That's quite interesting because even within small bets, you have seemingly you've kept it steady, but you have to adapt a lot. But I wonder, the back of your head, do you think about your next small bet? You said earlier that you don't have anything planned, but you're looking, right? You're seeing the market, you're paying attention. When is the Daniel Vassallo AI product dropping?
No, very unlikely in AI. But I think something which I think happens a lot with many people is that while running small bets, I'm recognizing lots of small gaps, particularly with software. Right, with event management, with even just basic email marketing, with basic things, how to run the business. That is, I think I really believe there's an opportunity here to carve out small things that I've built for myself to help operate the business, to carve out those micro, mini SaaS products. Right? So that's what I think is going to be the rest of 2024, second half, maybe early 2025. A little bit, to use the cliche term almost, 12 startups in 12 months, but something like that where I have, maybe not 12 to be honest, probably I have 6 small things that I think with my audience and with me having needed these things, right, to be able to put out there on the market, and then same thing, take what works. I wouldn't say throw away the rest, necessarily shut them down, right? But just stop giving them attention if they don't work out. And again, basic things related to scheduling events, like a poor man's Calendly, for example. There's many of them, right? And many of them are very sophisticated. But sometimes I need the most basic things. I just need to pick 5 days and send them out to my audience or to my email list and tell them, look, just pick something from these 5 days, right? And then, just exchanges the Zoom meetings, right? Where I'm sure you can do this with Calendly and with all the other competitors, but you just have to go to 5 different submenus and all those kinds of things. So I have small SaaS ideas that I would very likely bring to market that in the very near future. But there's also other services type things. Right? So I learned something interesting with my partner Louis earlier this year, where we did what we call the Info Product Launchpad. Right? We were invited. It was like a mini cohort course, but it was more one-on-one based. Right? Where we invited people who were interested in making info products, which we consider, books, courses, live classes, and these kinds of things, like to literally handhold them to the whole process, from finding viable ideas to producing the product, to bringing it to market, to preparing the landing page, choosing the pricing, promotion, and all these kinds of things. And we modeled this out mostly initially as a type of a cohort course, where we had like 4 lessons, 1 each week, right? And then we had a group chat and whatever. But again, surprisingly, what really worked best, I think, was that we offered people to have one-on-one calls with us. And these were amazing. That I felt they were super valuable, and everyone kept saying, just this 30-minute call, paid for itself. Like whatever I paid, this is what I needed, because we were able to give really useful advice. So again, like this might sound again like something not very creative, but I'm thinking of productizing this a little bit, like offering my own office hours, right, about things related to very small creators, right, who I'm not charging a lot, but charging say $800, and you get a number of some amount of time with me, right? And you can use it whenever you want. That never expires. You can use it. I want sometime today, sometime in the future. You basically have access to me on speed dial. If you're doing something that you think I've done before and I'm able to help you, right, because I've lived it myself, just go to my Calendly page, book some time with me, and we can have a call.
I'm not a fan of Calendly as well. If you're planning to build something, I'm fully on board.
No, I really, none of the options. None of the options have really served me well. Again, I use them and I tolerate them, but I just like this simple things, right? Especially since I'm quite careful again with my calendar, because I don't want to have it all like Swiss cheese. So I want to pick exactly what is available, right? And I think that's my workflow. Saturday at 8 I'm free. You can choose that. So it's not like this like 9 to 5 or whatever. These calendars.
But I also love the idea when it comes to indie hacking, when we take big products and then choose small pieces of them.
Yeah, just basic features. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think it's another underrated thing that I see. I see people succeeding with this, but not a lot of celebration, right? But I think it's an underrated way of look, again, many indie hackers do these things, right? So it's not, but building a screenshotting tool. Like Tony didn't build a great screenshotting tool a couple of years ago. It was basically based on one feature. Like everyone has a screenshotting tool baked into their OS. It's free, but this thing that it did, it just balanced it, right? So if you take it asymmetrical, right? I take a snapshot, and there's like 50 pixels of white and 20 pixels of white here, just puts it in the middle. That was the main thing it did, right? And it was enough for people to pay $20 to have this thing that I take screenshots almost every day to share on social, whatever. It was a no-brainer, right? And I highly encourage people to think like that, like what's the missing feature? Don't think of, again, like something is going to be scalable or hype-driven or AI, whatever, like something small, right? And it doesn't need to continue to grow forever, right? What if this thing makes, let's say you work on this thing for a few weeks and it only makes $1,000 a month, right? It's probably for many people that's already a great ROI, right? And this is the mistake, right? It's like forgetting that it is an ROI function, right? Whatever the payoff is going to be, how much did I spend in terms of time, effort, money, and so on and so forth.
For sure. And I think it's a great entering point for anyone who is just getting into indie hacking, just choosing one simple feature and just building around.
The best way to mitigate risk, I think, is to choose small things. This is why the small bets, that's why small innings, right? Is like, and all these similar philosophies, ship fast, 12 startups, 12 months, they're all focused on small, right? Basically, not overthink it, pick up things, don't chew more than you can bite, be realistic, shoot for the small wins, and then let the other things take care of themselves. And we can't control many things. The only thing we can control is our input. We start with a time budget, time appetite, and they say, for this idea, my appetite is to spend 2 weeks full time. Great, high intensity mode. I'm going to turn off social media. I'm going to bring it to market, figure out everything. 2 weeks, that's my appetite, right? It might not work. Okay, I'll be a bit disappointed, but that's the most I lost. I think probably one of the most insidious traps is the indefinite project, like what I was doing in the beginning. Oh, eventually this will work. But when is that eventually? What signal will I know? Who's going to come and show me, it's going to work now? It doesn't happen, right? So it's taming uncertainty, right? This is a term that I really like, right? I think this is the job of an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning, where there's even more uncertainty. You're starting from zero, very little attention, little credibility, nothing working yet. You don't have connections. You have a lot of uncertainty. Life is just a big fog in front of you, business life. Your goal, I think, is to tame it. You can't eliminate it, you tame it. You need to be able to reason about it. And I think these small projects, you start getting, you got 100 customers. You might say, okay, it's not going to change my life. But, I have 100 email addresses, right? Or maybe some of those 100 people.
But if they pay $39 per month,
you
get $1 million a year.
Exactly. Yeah, and even if it was much lower than that, right? Even if it's just something that makes you, just, $5,000 once, not even per month. Like just, put out a small project, maybe $5,000 a month. You might say, okay, that barely covers my bills for this month. It's fine. It's not really about the money in the beginning. But in the beginning, there's this saying, success brings with it more success. It's usually used as a negative expression. Usually politicians use it as a way to justify inequality, and it certainly has its own problems in the world. But I think one way to take advantage of this seemingly rule of life, right, which probably we all understand, right, it applies, where the more you succeed, the more you're likely to succeed, is by going after the small wins. It's the complete opposite of what the Silicon Valley environment pushes you to do, to go shoot for the stars and land on the moon. I think what people should be doing is to curb their ambitions, go after the small wins, try to find 100 customers, charging them something one time, make $5,000. Now you have a small advantage, and I would say a significant advantage compared to when you were with zero. You have 100 email addresses. You might have built some reputation and perhaps some audience. Some of those customers might leave you some testimonials, some reviews, which you might use for other products. Suddenly, you're in a slightly higher step. The next product, your odds of success are significantly better, right? And this you significantly easier. And then do another thing, small thing, right? And another thing. And eventually, that you have a portfolio of different things. Look, I right now, I have, I think, 40,000 email addresses of people who I sold something to. It's a significant asset, right? And it has already, materially benefited me when I announced something and I said, hey, you bought something from me in the past. I just announced this new thing. I think it might interest you. And I've sent emails like this and made $40,000 like in 24 hours to my past customers. This is not relying on the Twitter algorithm, whatever. Right? And this was selling small, tiny things. Right? I made a short book about AWS, a course about Twitter. I sold spreadsheets, PDFs, lots of random things, even free downloads. Yeah,
I have to stop you. In 2021, you made a huge mistake, Daniel.
Yeah.
And I have to actually read it for you because we have prepared that, and I don't want to make mistakes.
It's probably not what you expect, though.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm curious.
No. In 2021, you publicly said that you made $335,000, but in fact, it was 304. So there was like $378 off. And, but that doesn't quite matter because we all make mistakes.
Yes. I'm curious, how did you find it?
I'm not done here.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't matter because we all make mistakes, Daniel, except me and Dan, because we use Sentry.
I see.
Sentry find mistakes.
Now I get it.
And my question now for you is, do you use Sentry?
I don't, and probably I should. So, looking forward to
we came with receipts. So
yeah, and actually, yeah. So what's interesting here? What messes up my numbers is that usually it's refunds because I don't account for them in a consistent way. Sometimes I apply them negatively to when the sale happens, and sometimes I apply them when the refund happens. So that's why sometimes my numbers fluctuate a little bit.
It's okay.
Wow, that's incredible. You found this.
We really wanted to. We both follow you, so we know a lot about you, but we wanted to know everything about you. So now we do, and we just. We were going through the research and we just learned to respect you more and more for what you did. So that's fantastic. So, but you should use Sentry. That is for sure. I think you're gonna love it because you have a huge technical background. I don't think you talk about it that much these days, but you used to post a lot about technical subjects.
That's how I started. Yeah, and that's also one of the other independence things that I appreciate. So it's like I stopped. I wouldn't say I stopped being interested in tech. Certainly not the case. But since I'm less involved I don't program, I don't code on a daily basis. Right now, I would have to force myself to talk about tech stuff, right? So
what did they do in Amazon to you?
No, yeah, I think it's not. Look. Believe it or not, right? I have to admit that I almost enjoy being a marketer more than I enjoy being a coder. There's something about marketing, and actually, I think this is my other hot take. In my opinion, all indie hackers should think of themselves as marketers first. Everything follows on marketing.
That's what I asked Mark Lou. Exactly. Do you consider yourself a developer or a marketer now? Because I do think that
you have to be a marketer. And you build. And in fact, I think even if you were a co-founding pair where one is a more builder, one is a marketer, the builder should probably do what the marketer says. I think the marketer should be the leader. That it's really a marketing game.
I come to the office every single day. And I tell them, guys,
Listen to
What do
me.
you think?
This to me was a surprise about myself as well, because I never thought, I've been coding. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, since I was 5 years old, my dad bought a Commodore 64, like many, geeks with computers. I started, asking how to make games, and spent most of my childhood tinkering around with computers. I thought I'm the typical programmer who will only find satisfaction professionally in writing code and making computers do what I like or what I want them to do. I still enjoy that, but I think the challenge and the satisfaction from convincing humans to do what I want them to do is much more rewarding than convincing a computer to do what I want to do. And I think marketing essentially is basically that, right? And I really think, to be successful, that you have an eye for marketing, right? To at least to improve your odds of success, right? Which is another thing that I discovered about myself that I'm really enjoying. So basically, coding became more of a means to an end for me now, right? I love having built something, but I want to just get over with it, right? And be there promoting stuff and tinkering with the landing pages and analyzing the data and so on and so forth.
Yeah, getting
And
deep in the stack,
convincing people, like
optimizing.
persuading people. Right? It's the amount of reward. Like again, I mentioned that email, for example. I sent an email, made $40,000 like with one email. It's very hard to describe how rewarding that is. Something you crafted, words you've written, convince people to take the wallet out of their pocket, look at their 16-digit number, enter them there, press
Can
the
you
buy
read
button.
the email?
Yeah, no.
We should
happily
read
do.
it. Yeah.
Right. But basically, it's literally it's nothing crazy. That is like what I was saying. You bought something from me in the past. I just did this. Well, when I launched small bets, it started like that actually, right? And I sent it to everyone. Even it's funny that I experimented with so many things that at one point I was even selling handmade cutting boards. I don't know if you guys know about this. I started.
No,
We are ready.
So you don't know about this yet?
We sort of, but please
No,
tell
so
us
during the
about.
pandemic, like many people, had more abundant spare time and started picking up new hobbies and woodworking. But a bit of personal frustration. I wanted a bunk bed for my kids and I couldn't find one that fit in the right place. So I figured, why don't I just make it myself? And long story short, I never made the bunk bed. But I started really enjoying making stuff, and I started buying tools and so on and so forth.
That's a true maker, right?
Yeah.
When you make physical products as well, then
Exactly, it is the true maker thing. Yeah. So, I was doing things for my house: tables, coffee tables, benches, desks, whatever. And sort of the entrepreneurial part in me was thinking, what if I could sell something? I never tried e-commerce, physical products. And one time I did this sort of basic cutting board for ourselves. And I said, actually cutting boards is just a piece of rectangle, easy to ship.
how hard can it be? Yeah.
How hard can it be? So I actually, I didn't want to, cutting boards. There's so much on the market, $40, $20 on Amazon, race to the bottom. So to try to differentiate myself, I created this super fancy design cutting boards. Like this took me like very impressive kaleidoscope designs. And I tried to go high end, like selling a $400 cutting board, which is this was actually a marketing mistake that I'm happy to talk about it later. But anyway, long story short, I did a batch of these. I sold them all. I sold about 15 of them. I was hoping to do more. But then I started to do the numbers and the time spent, and I realized actually this is a bit much more work than I thought I would do.
So this is a super cool story. Actually, it's funny because on this show, we have a recurring segment. You probably haven't seen that many episodes, but we call it a cutting board review.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we
that's
each
cool.
take a cutting board.
Yeah.
And there's, it's a fairly thorough process. So we have five distinctive tests for each cutting board. And we take, this is a olive tree cutting board. It's very smooth. So,
oops, did we lose
well,
Dan?
do you have a cutting board close to you, or otherwise we just go do the segment and you can give your expert opinion. Oh yeah, sorry.
So you were cutting then, so I didn't get the question.
You were literally being cut then.
Yes, your ability
On the board.
On the board.
So if you have a cutting board, just feel free to bring it out.
Yeah, no, because I'm actually not in. I'm in Malta right now, not even where I live. So I'm in my second summer home. I have no cutting boards here.
Fair enough. So let me walk you through it. So the first element is the smell. So Sandra, if you pull your cutting board, what is the smell? On my end, it's woody.
Yeah, this is actually a new wooden thingy that it's possible totally to stretch. And
is that made out of wood?
Yeah, of course. It's a new material only produced in Finland. This is first time the world seeing something like this. I don't know, can you actually?
Yeah, we can see. It looks very much like plastic to me. But let's move on. So flexibility-wise, you seem to have an edge. Mine is pretty stiff, to be honest, which I would consider that a bonus. But in your case, you can do, you can actually achieve more. You can actually achieve more with that. It's a bit of an innovation you got going on there. The next one is the knocking sound. Could you please? Yeah, mine is a 5 out of 5. It sounds. It's. Did you just knock on the table?
Yes.
It's. All right. The next one is utility. I think mine is very small, so I could probably cut a piece of cheese on it. Not much more than that, and I probably shouldn't put this in water. It might maybe Daniel knows, if I put this in water, will it last?
Yeah, you shouldn't submerge it.
No,
but of course, water won't harm it.
But mine though.
Yours could be fully submerged.
Yes. It will remain for probably 10,000 years.
Yeah.
And
that is actually the problem with it.
What?
All right.
What are you talking about? I have no idea.
And finally, the thickness, Sandra. I think thickness is maybe what's actually best. Should it be thicker or thinner?
Yeah. Usually it should be thicker. It depends on what you're cutting, right? So if you're cutting like meat, for example, you want something thick to be able to like chop. But if you're cutting cheese, it's fine.
For cheese, yeah.
To answer your
thickness
question,
helps with
Daniel.
the stability as well. So yeah, thicker is usually better.
To answer your question, do we know about your board? Yes, we do.
You do, yes. We
see it literally. Daniel, I want to ask, do you still have time, because we have a couple more things?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of time. Yes.
That's fantastic, because we have this other segment also that we did with Mark. It's called Morning Caffeine Burst, and it's a series of questions that you need to answer with yes or no. That's it.
Okay.
And there will be a rapid fire, and then we just go through it. Are you ready?
Ready. Yes.
Work from home.
Yes.
VC funding.
No.
Levels.io.
Yes.
Family.
Yes.
F1.
Yes.
Clarkson's farm.
Yes.
Video courses.
Yes.
Invest in NVIDIA.
No.
40 hours. Oh, that's 40 hours of work a week.
No.
Living in Europe.
No.
Coffee. Coffee. Yes.
Yes.
Paying taxes in Europe.
No.
Standing desks.
No.
US dentists.
Still yes, despite my misadventure.
Malta dentists.
Yes.
Good. I think that's it. I think you've passed in my eyes. You've probably made a couple enemies. I like the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can explain if it would.
Yeah, well, briefly.
Yeah.
Why do you think investing in NVIDIA is not a good idea? Or not anymore?
So I went to a period where I was investing, especially when I was working in Amazon, and I see investing in individual stocks almost as too speculative, at least in my current situation right now. And I already have a speculative part, which is my business, right? So I want my money to be in as predictable things as possible. I don't want to. I used to be the kind of person who opens the stock market app in the morning to see how the stocks are doing. I don't want that anymore. So I'm mostly investing into very boring, broad things, lots of US treasuries, some ETFs, real estate. Again, not financial advice. I think it's, something I think I learned with investing is that, what's good for me is not necessarily good for level CEOs, not necessarily good for Warren Buffett, and what's good for Warren Buffett is not necessarily good for me, and so on and so forth. It depends on your circumstances, the stage you are in life, the other income streams that you have right now. So I like to balance things. So with my money, I like to put them in things where I know I'm going to find them. That's more important than me than they growing. And personally, just NVIDIA, just for entertainment purposes. NVIDIA is such a fascinating business. I mean, think about it. It started as a gaming graphics card, and it had two lucky events, one with crypto and one with AI, where they succeeded with something they weren't even, which also goes back to the randomness of business when you think about it. Like, imagine this, insane. And twice, right? Well, crypto turned out to be the most important thing, and crypto almost died, or well, it went, so it's a high bubble, and now AI. And I think when something grows up very quickly, the competitors will eventually catch up. And when something goes up quickly, it can also go down very quickly as well, right? So I think AI especially is so new that something small can change, and suddenly the need for NVIDIA cards could literally collapse almost overnight, I think, right? So again, it might still be a good investment, or certainly a very spectacular business, but I wouldn't put a lot of money personally into it. It would for me.
But you mentioned something interesting to me. What do you think about like jumping on these
angel investing and things like that?
Like some hot topics like AI right now, like there are people jumping and building products around AI.
I respect. I think I respect people who do that, and I think it's a very good thing to jump on it. It's. Peter Levels actually posted something very interesting a couple of days ago, or maybe even yesterday. He said, I'm working on something non-AI and I feel so relieved. And I think it encapsulated, again, like there's so much uncertainty into that. And this is maybe if I was still 22 years old, I'm 41 now with limited time, sick kids, having lots of things going on. I don't think I have the appetite to be up to date with everything that's happening with AI and adapting. I still adapt to things, but I think that would require a level of adaptation that probably I can't tolerate right now, right? So again, don't get me wrong, if I find some opportunity I can squeeze myself into it, I would take it, and I'm keeping an eye on things, and maybe I will try some small projects. I do have an OpenAI API account, and I experiment some things just out of curiosity and ready to be there, exactly. So but it's not like I'm dropping everything and going on AI just because it's the new gold rush. I'd rather, like in the next 6 months, do some of those boring Web 2.0 mini SaaS that I think I can find some customers a bit more reliably because I'm solving a problem that I need, and presumably a few others will need it as well. Again, without necessarily thinking big. But yeah, like people who are pursuing it is a very good thing to pursue right now. And by the way, I think education in AI is another thing that is probably still under leveraged, right? People who want to teach other people about how to make the best use of AI, especially people, corporates, managers, and things like that. I think there's so much demand right now that, if you want to sell your sawdust, so to speak, right? If you're learning AI stuff for your own projects and you want to monetize some of the knowledge in your head, I think probably educational video courses, books, whatever, those kinds of things are probably another good opportunity.
I just want to quickly go back to like community you are building. How do you find the right people that are giving classes to your community? Like, how do you recognize them? Is it coming from the community, or like you're just keeping threads and trends?
Mostly, I think probably mostly from Twitter, some from the community, but almost all personal connections, like people who I recognized. But I think something I learned is that You do need a bit of a skill, right, to translate your knowledge to a teachable presentation. Do you still hear me, by the way? I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry. So yes. So I think it's been a bit of partly it's also experimentation, right? You give people a chance, and then you see, did their message come to them? Because sometimes you can tell they know a lot about the topic, but there's the curse of knowledge, they call it, right? In education, that you know so much that you forget how it was when you were completely green, right? And when you're using acronyms and jargon and other things, that you start to lose people. So basically, it's a bit of discovering people's credibility, mostly from Twitter, sometimes from the community, seeing people answering others. But then I test their skill to present by just giving them a chance, right? Would you come to do a class? Again, like members join for free once they join, so it's not like I'm charging people extra for these classes. So it's a bit of a low risk thing, even if it doesn't turn out to be super successful, it was still a free thing, right? So that's how I've been doing the process.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about small bets a lot, and there's a lot of talk about like who is actually coming and who is giving a speech and what people are learning. So there's a lot of excitement about that. But something interesting when we are talking about X and your content, you have very like kind of thought-provoking tweets. Something like, here's what China banned, or
to say the least.
Or everyone wants everyone back to the office. What do you think about that? And etc. Where is that coming from? How do you do that?
No. So I think I have a lot of non-thought-provoking thoughts, mundane things. I just don't tweet them, right? Because I don't think they're. And I think what ends up in my Twitter timeline are the things that I think I would find interesting, right? So I play a little bit of golden rule with my Twitter account. It's a little bit my bar, right? I try to, not always, right? I break the rules sometimes. I post funny things or a photo of the sunset or whatever, just for fun. But in general, I try to think like, if I was scrolling Twitter and I stumble on this tweet and I pause to read it, would I regret reading it? Or would it cause some food for thought, some thinking, or me to maybe see things from a different light? Right? And I don't think it's a very high bar when you think about it. All you need is to make people pause and not regret it, right? And but I think there's a bit of a selection bias, right? Because I might seem like a super controversial person if you just read my tweets. But I think it's just the things that make it to Twitter are the things worth tweeting about, which are the ones I tweet about, right? So, and most of these things come from, again, like interestingly, conversations with other people. Sometimes I'm chatting with people on Campfire with the community, and we're having a complex discussion there. And I think the habit of me now tweeting for a long time now, for almost 6 years, I feel I became good at condensing something in 280 characters. Peter Levels, I think, is way better than me. Right? I think he's probably the gold standard of how to put on a show. Like he said something once that I think is really interesting. I think it was with him, with Arvid Khan on his podcast. He said, on Twitter, you have to put on a show. And when I heard it, I thought, that's a bit odd. I don't think I put on a show. But then I kept thinking about it, and I thought, that's true. That's what you need to do. You need to present things, even if it's a mundane thing, you need to present it in an entertaining way. Like, you asked me one of the rapid answer questions about Clarkson Farm. It's a mundane thing. That it's a guy with a documentary comedy thing, a guy with a tractor, dealing with farming stuff, but it's presented in an incredibly entertaining way. First of all, a world-class comedian, sort of hosting it and so on and so forth. And I think if you start to develop an eye for mundane things, sometimes even like opening a bank account, like one of the most boring things, or trying to apply for credit card and getting rejected, or running an advertising campaign recently. For example, I ran some ads on Twitter to test it out. Like, how do you share those results? You could share them in a boring way. But for example, to give you one concrete example, right? So during Black Friday last year, in November, I was trying Twitter ads for the first time, and I put a budget of $1,000 with a tweet for small bets. And after the budget got exhausted, I realized the tweet made 1 million impressions from the ads. And I saw it on the dashboard, like $1,000, 1 million impressions. And this was interesting to me, right? It's the first time I could convert money to impressions, and then I could think about conversion rates and so on and so forth. And I wanted to share it with my audience, and I was trying to think of how to present it in a nice way. And I said something like, do you want 1 million impressions? Just pay $1,000. And it's an interesting, thought-provoking way, because many people think getting 1 million impressions on Twitter is very hard. Organically, I only got a few tweets that got 1 million impressions. $1,000 is not nothing, right? But it's also not like inaccessible. Right? If you really want 1 million impressions, you could pay $1,000 and you have it. And that's, I think it's an entertaining way to present something so seemingly mundane, boring, a piece of data, right? So I really think that's the key, right? To nowadays, at least, right? To even to build in public. You can't just document, oh yeah, I'm updating my NPM packages, or I just make my first dollar. You have to put something. You have to make it interesting, right? And Peter does really well with the way he speaks, his stories he incorporates, and the things he leaves out, which I think is also important. Not intentionally to mislead, right? Because this is one of the tricks with Twitter. You can't have very nuanced, you can't write a book in a tweet, right? I mean, there are topics that I could write 500 pages on, but there's a version of that is 280 characters, and you have to leave things out. Now, if people might jump in the comments and ask, and you can have the more context that way, but it's part of the game there, I think. Right? It's one way of having that kind of interactivity on that kind of platform, at least.
Yeah, for sure. There are certain templates. I think Dan and I used one a few months ago, but when we did that, we had to leave Twitter for 2 days because we couldn't face what was happening.
Yeah, it felt wrong, it felt like we shouldn't be doing this. So we just, when you do something bad and you close your eyes and you say, I don't want to see but that's what it is with social media. It's a lot of getting out of your comfort zone, isn't it?
Look, I think I talk about topics that I think throughout all my life I had always, for example, on money, right? For some people, talking about money is something a bit taboo. I've always talked about money since I was a kid, I think, right? And as soon as I got my first job, I told all my friends how much I'm making. Even when I was at Amazon, I think I got a lot of respect from my colleagues because I was helping them. Look, this is how I made at your level. I think you should ask for a pay raise. And this was very refreshing because most people don't talk about those things. And so me doing that on Twitter wasn't that of a stretch. I felt I've done it a long time. There are many other things I don't talk about, right? Personal relationships or whatever. I don't feel, and the same thing, to be honest, in real life. They're not the kind of things I tend to be very open about with strangers in particular, and I wouldn't be on Twitter. And I don't think you necessarily need to stretch yourself too much. And I think certainly if something feels too risky to say because it might upset your friends or your boss or whatever, I would encourage you to not post it, right? Because you don't want to cause any harm. And I do hold myself sometimes from saying things because I know it doesn't affect just me, right? I know friends of my wife are seeing my tweets and other things. So, I draw the line at some point. Like, what's the point? In ruffling too many feathers.
Now people in comments are asking, what is your stance on Europe? And maybe that's not the right moment then to talk.
No, it's the wrong podcast.
No, happy to.
We can do it. We can do it
now. So whatever. Happy to.
We can skip that one.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to get you cancelled. Like, I don't have a very controversial. I'm European, right? So I'm European living in the USA permanently, right? But I'm in Europe right now, so I sort of happy to talk.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever.
But let's go back to the ads. Yeah. Let's go back to the ads.
Yes. So the ads is, I think that was just one basic example, right? Because I think once you start developing this eye of putting up a show, as Peter put it, even basic things that happen to you. Peter Levitz had this excellent example, I think a couple of weeks ago, where his girlfriend had her luggage lost, right, with one of the airlines. And he wrote this, long form tweet, not very long. It felt like something he wrote very quickly. It was nothing related to his businesses, mostly, at least not directly. But it was a bit of a show. Basically, the show was that despite me having the AirTags, we have the AirTags on all our luggage and we know exactly where they are, the airline still can't do anything. And that's an interesting, thought-provoking thing. Like, oh yeah, actually, why am I bothering? Sometimes it's better actually if you don't know. And actually they were traveling again. So there was all this mess. And same thing. Like, it was this dentist thing, right? Like long-form post that you referred to, I think, in the quick answer, quick fire thing, right? Which same thing, it was a very recent experience. I think these things really help build connection with people. I mentioned like Mark, for example, and Peter. I never talked with either of them on a one-on-one call, but I feel I know them. And I think that happened because of these kinds of tweets. They're not just presenting statistics or documenting boring things, right? They're giving away a part of their life, still not necessarily a huge part, right? You're the director. Some part. Right? I think to be authentic, this is another misconception. You don't have to share everything. You can be authentic and you just share something. Right?
Absolutely. And I think the indie hackers, or at least in our community, people manage to show themselves and sell themselves as well. And then whatever they're building or product they're selling, either to the community or outside of the community. And I think that's really like interesting part of marketing. If you manage to, because we can see like people building different projects and then keep selling these different projects. So people are not emotionally connected to these projects, but rather to the person who is selling these.
Yeah, this is it. When I think about it, I prefer doing business with people who I know, right? So, if again,
John said that in the last episode. If I'm able to hug you, I'm able to do this with you.
Exactly. Right. So this is the thing, right? And look, like I mentioned Campfire, right? And I've been following Jason Fried, DHH forever. Learned a lot from them. It inspired me a lot. It's it turned out to be something that I needed, right? But one of the motivators to even pay attention to it, just because I felt I know them. And again, same thing here. I know them only from X and from the internet. And I think this is something that I think, and the hackers should, getting yourself known. Like this is, I think, basic commerce from thousands of years ago, right? That I think it's just human nature. I think modernity has created this illusion that we're doing business with big faceless corporations because, you go to the supermarket, it's not like you know who the supermarket owner is and you're dealing with these brands, whatever. But the prime mode of commerce, the more primitive, is you're dealing directly with the farmer, you're dealing with the blacksmith, you're dealing with whatever. And I think this is all, but the internet, I think, has helped a lot, especially the social media, probably even more so, make the small business again be able to commerce and do transactions based on, I'm buying the thing because I know you, right? Not because I did some analysis in the spreadsheets, weigh the pros and cons, and of course it needs to do its job, right? But that's one of the main things. It's a very big thing, I think.
But what's different? Like if you would start your journey today, what's the biggest difference in what you were doing years ago? So like what would be the biggest lesson or something that you would say to indie hackers, how to get themselves into this and build something that is successful? How many times we have to fail? At least that.
Look, interesting question. Actually, the failing part. So let's put another hot take. I think failure is overglorified, right? And I think there's this mantra many people say, oh, I failed, but at least I learned something. And I think I would recommend people to even stop saying it, not because you don't learn something when you fail, but failure is a very costly way to learn. Look, if you're trying to fly a plane, you shouldn't expect to crash the plane to learn how to fly it. Actually, that would be a very foolish thing to do, right? You should learn other ways. And in fact, I think small wins are better teachers than failures, big or small. When you send an email and it converts, it brings you $1,000 in sales, there's more to learn from sending an email and it flops. Because if it flops, why did it flop? Was it because of the subject? Was it because of the delivery rate? Was it because of the email provider? Was it because of the body? Was it because it's too long? Was it because it's too short? Was the call to action too bad? There's a million variables. If it worked, you might still not know why it worked, but you can at least copy it. And next time you do something, use the same template and whatever. And in fact, if you look at my landing pages of my products, once I stumbled on something that worked, I almost kept repeating it, even for completely different things, right? Because for some reason, this seems to be working, right? So there's information in small wins more than there is with failure. So I think that's an interesting thing, right? Because I think sometimes these small bets, sort of ship fast philosophies get misinterpreted as just throw a bunch of random things to the wall and hope something sticks. But I think that's also too naive, right? It's not about just randomly throwing things at the wall. I think you should do things that have a fighting chance of paying off, right? So there should be at least a hypothesis, right? If you're doing this project with the expectation that, say, you should have an expectation, in my opinion, say, if this makes me $10,000 or $100,000 in its lifetime, this project that I'm working, I'm going to be satisfied. That's my expectation. Then the next question should be, what's my hypothesis for how that expectation is going to happen? What are these people? If I want to make $100,000 and I'm selling this thing for $100, I'm going to need 1,000 customers. Where are those 1,000 customers going to come from? I have no followers on Twitter, no audience. Maybe I need to do SEO. Let me go take a look at some keyword research tools. How many people are searching for these terms? Are they too crowded? Or if yes, they're all sort of the top 10 are filled by high-ranking domains. Well, why do I think I'm going to be in there? So you need to convince yourself that this at least has a fighting chance of working. If not, I would recommend do something else or shape it to something different, right? So
this fits so very well with what you said. The best thing you could do is realize you are not special and learn how to deal with all the uncertainty of life.
Absolutely. Taming uncertainty. That's the job, right? You're not special, you're not a visionary. Even if you are, I think you should assume that you aren't, right? You're just an agent in the market with a bunch of opacity in front of you, because things are too complex for our human brain to understand. That is like trying to predict the weather for the next month. With all the technology we have and with all we can't really do it, right? We can guess, educated guess, it's likely going to be sunny, it's summer, right? But I watch Formula One. It's funny, right? I was just watching qualifying in Hungary this morning. Hungary has been in a heat wave for like an entire month. Out of nowhere, it started raining, right? And there's teams spending billions of dollars in equipment and technology. Nobody predicted the rain. They're all like, oh, and they're all unprepared. It's fascinating. And the market, there's just some atmospheric phenomena happened, and suddenly all the humidity turned into rain. And I think the market is the same thing, right? You still can make all these educated guesses about, I assume 1% conversion rate and I have so many followers on Twitter. If 1% see the tweet and 1% buy, that's good. I highly recommend you do that math in your head or piece of napkin or whatever, but it's still uncertainty at the end of the day, right? But I think there should be a selection criteria. That I think sometimes, again, builders who consider themselves builders, I think jump too quickly on projects because they're excited to build them, or they And again, like if this is going to be a one-day project, fine, like whatever, do whatever you want. But if you're spending even a week, I think, a week, there aren't a lot of weeks in a year, right? I mean, a week is still a decent amount of investment. 2 weeks, a month, even more so. Like if you're spending a month, I would say there aren't a lot of months in a lifetime, right? A month is still a chunky amount of life to spend on a project. You should be doing things that, and sometimes, the payoff, your expectation may be not necessarily financial. I'm doing this to improve my reputation. Maybe it's an open source project, right? Or fine, or for improving my audience or growing that's fine. But it's important to have some expectations, some hypothesis how you're going to get there, and then you mitigate the risk by controlling your appetite, right? And I think this is the most systematic way of taming uncertainty in this world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's interesting. Every time we had a guest, one of the main things that they've been saying is that the lessons they learned during the failure, and they said exactly the same thing as you said. We need to stop using that word because it kind of shapes you, like everything you go through with building these projects inside, it shapes you, or the image you are sending out there.
Many things. I think it's just the wrong way of thinking, right? It should be about winning, right? And like you try to do something small, low-hanging fruit. How was the easiest $100 you can make, and then try to learn from that. I think that's the right way to do it, right? And then you try to make $500 and $1,000, and you learn from those. Sometimes you'll fail. But I think, again, like doing all these post-mortems, look, failure, of course, unpredictable things, like when there's a plane crash and the authorities come and examine what failed, that's very important. We know that things improve when things are very deterministic, like that, the sensor froze and that's what happened. That's great. But in business, again, we're like in this complex world where you can't even know what and this is also very naive. Sometimes you see these post-mortems of people reflecting on their failures and say, I failed because I didn't do enough marketing, or I failed because I didn't do this or that. Why do you think so? Right? It could very likely have been some other things, right? And things that you can't even see or reason about, right? So I think you risk learning negative knowledge, I like to call it. So you risk jumping to conclusions that shouldn't be jumped to if you keep trying to learn from these kinds of things.
Daniel, I have maybe an unusual question, but
yeah.
Do you? You feel like something's coming?
He's ready.
Let's go.
Do you feel like what you've shared in this show, that is it fine to use this content? Because I think it's essentially a goal, but it's a recipe for people to build their own image. Do you feel that's fine?
Yeah. Use. That's the impression. That's the assumption I had. Yeah. Use.
Can you say clearly yes?
Clearly do it. I need to sign it on the camera.
Can you say
yes?
Because Sandra, you look a bit hungry, by the way. Because while we were talking, I got this. Do you know this app called Limitless? They have a pendant.
I don't think so.
Okay, so basically, it takes the transcription of whatever you're doing on the computer. So whatever it is. So I kind of took the transcription of all the learnings and created a book, like as we were talking. And it's a handbook, right? It has 9 pages. That's what it ended up being. And I took everything you said, and it's now on sale on smallopinions.com.
Already?
It's there. It can be bought. If I press buy, right, we go to a checkout. There's a really beautiful illustration of you, essentially saying,
"This is amazing.
Be careful what you're getting into." I'm just gonna tweet this right now. I think I have a tweet ready. So
this is next level.
There's a twist to it, though. So, I really wanted the marketing to be cool and to have urgency. And
it's the best copy I have ever seen in my life.
So the price doubles with each 10 sales.
Yeah. I've seen this.
So you know, some people might get it, and then afterwards it will be quite expensive. And I've asked ChatGPT earlier.
Yeah.
Oh no, now they're gonna see all my
Oh, man.
chats. That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
Lara, cut this out and post. It will end.
82,000. Yeah.
Yeah, it can.
That's
It
nice.
can end up as a pretty nice small bet that we just did. I can. I'll send you the PDF afterwards. It actually turned out really, really nice. Can I just show you one page? That would be pretty cool. Let's see. Can I open this in Chrome somewhere?
How much is it?
It's $8.99 to start, and it's gonna go up. So this is the cover. I really like these illustrations, man. The age of AI, where you can generate these things. There's so much creativity. Yeah. So we have a small intro, and happy Daniel down there. And then the structure is very simple. It's a little bit like this. It's a big takeaway on, you know, a stepping stone in the journey, a few what to do and what not to do, or when to do it, mentality, and then like bullet points of learning. So it's pretty digestible. And yeah, it goes up to 11 pages. That's all I'm going to show. This is the teaser. I'm quite excited about it. It turned out I was skimming through it. Of course, I was listening to you, so I hope there's nothing very embarrassing in there. But that's sort of why we asked if it's okay to share this.
No, this is very impressive, and actually, this is a very an excellent demonstration of selling your sawdust, right? And sort of
maximizing. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's wonderful. No, I'm blown away.
1 million revenue in 3 years.
Yeah.
I stole some of the screenshots from your blog. If we need to pay royalties, please let me know. I thought this is very good with motivation.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I cannot continue. Daniel, are you Italian?
So I'm Maltese, very close to Italy. My last name, I think, comes from Italy, but from hundreds of years ago. So I don't know any Italian
Why am
ancestors.
I eating pineapple and pizza then?
No, it's no. You do it too. We do it too.
We just wanted to annoy you a little bit.
Yeah, that's 1/4 of the audience gone, Sandra. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, but that's what you said before, right? That you need to put on a show, and I think
exactly
that's the spirit of the Morning Maker show. It's in the name. So if we don't put out a show, then I feel something's wrong.
And in fact, it's interesting. Like all podcasts, or most podcasts, call themselves a show, and it's an interesting term. You know, it has something in it. So I think it's important for people to remember. You're doing something in public, you're always putting up a show, right? So you have to. So, yeah, you guys are doing great.
Thank you so much. Would you say you've been to many podcasts before?
Yeah.
How are we ranking up? You know,
very good. Very top. Very good. I think this is one of the most casual ones I've been in, which is very interesting. I'm trying to sort of process if this is my preferred style, but it's excellent. I really enjoy it. I caught glimpses of the ones you did with Marie and with Mark, and maybe another one or so on Twitter. Most of that, I was just browsing Twitter, and I saw the live feed there, and I got hooked. Right, so from when I started watching, I kept watching it all. So I really enjoyed it. Certainly, I just subscribed on your YouTube as well, because I mostly watch recorded stuff on YouTube. So I increased your YouTube subscriber count by 1. So. And
every
often.
Subscriber counts. Every subscriber counts.
Are you planning to go to YouTube at some point?
I'm very tempted. It's the social media platform, if you call it that way, that I think I enjoy consuming as much as Twitter, probably. I think I spend most of my consumption time on Twitter and on YouTube. I think the problem I have still with with YouTube is the putting up in a show part where it doesn't take too much energy out of me. I'm mostly an introvert, so I'm sitting not a camera. I don't consider myself the kind of person who, super familiar with the camera recording myself live like this. I'm okay, but there's some awkwardness that I still haven't figured out. But I'm waiting, or I'm trying to find a casual way of a casual format that might work for me.
I have to tell you, you're dealing with me and Dan quite very, very well.
Yeah.
I'm
Exceptionally well.
here, and he's making a PDF book, and you are doing an excellent job here.
But I noticed this is again, I watch a lot of YouTube, right? And mostly hobby stuff again, woodworking and cars and DIY and whatever. And you watch part for the content, right? Oh yeah, I learned a new skill or whatever. But part is really entertainment, right? I just want to see something a bit spectacular being done in a nice way. And I'm not sure yet what my voice metaphorically is. On Twitter, I think I found it, right? But on video format, I'm not there yet. But I feel I have lots to say and to cover, right? So it's there's a bit of attention there. So pretty likely I will try at some point. I'm interested.
Yeah, I can see more and more people from community moving there. And I think that's the kind of fear of like what's going to happen with X, and you need to have multiple different channels. And I think YouTube is a great way, as you said, like if you're able to find your own way of like talking and presenting and having the idea of what to put there. And I think we saw with Mark Lu, like he expanded his reach on YouTube as well. And it was like really interesting for everyone to see like what happened when we go out from our own bubble.
Yeah. Look, I would never be able, I don't think ever, even if I dedicate the rest of my life, I would be able to do what Mark does on YouTube. That I think he has something in his personality that I don't think I can replicate. Right? I just have to recognize my limitations. But I still think there's a chance that I find my own style, right? Where there's less acting and less, he loves his stuff, right? I watched some YouTube videos and some of his clips on Twitter, super entertaining. I retweeted some of them because they're fascinating. I admire his talent and skill and the effort to put in. But I don't think I would ever be able to get this. So I think for me, I would have to find my own thing, right? It's like, what can it be where I'm presenting something where I'm still putting up a decent show, again, because I want it to be entertaining, without it feeling like it's either taking out all my energy or that I'm spending, sometimes I know people, YouTubers, like spending weeks, editing something. I don't think I have the patience or the appetite to do that, right? Twitter is the opposite, right? Twitter is, like now it's become so much of a part of my life that it's negligible the time I spent tweeting. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, scrolling, consuming, and liking, and whatever. But me tweeting, it's almost nothing. And I'm sure YouTube can never be like that. I'm willing to put more investment, more time into it, but it still has to be again within my appetite of commitment.
But I have to tell you, people are saying that you're sharing so much wisdom, so maybe that's just the way to go.
It's good to
yeah.
And I think what I'm missing yet on Twitter is the nuance on thing. And this, I think, so far, I think I had some success with the live classes. I've hosted lots of live classes on Zoom. Like I've done this sort of 9-hour program on small bets. I did lots of small classes, 1-hour classes on marketing, on Gumroad, on self-employment, on lots of small topics. And this is where I'm able to share my screen, show examples, show my books, and I think people appreciate that. Like, I mean, I've shown my live dashboard. Here's how I do things. And I think this is what I want to translate. But I think, again, like, when you're doing a live class, you spend an hour talking about something, and there's interaction from the crowd. They're typing in the chat, asking questions. There's that engagement. I think when you're doing something recorded, it needs to be probably a bit more high density, because there isn't the communication with the audience, right? So it needs to be a bit more probably rehearsed, delivered well, right? So I think this is the last bit I need to to cover. But yeah, I have lots of content that I could probably
Yeah, I imagine
listen
all those shorts you're gonna be able to distribute to
just
every single channel.
yeah.
Yeah. But sorry, Dan.
No, no, go ahead.
This is my sign to put my mic down.
Yes.
No, this is fantastic. I think I have one more question, but Daniel, if you have something to say, I bet there's quite a few people that have been tuning in throughout. I don't know if you've seen Philippe Keller around. Maybe he's one of the persons here mentioned. Yeah, he's absolutely he has been floored since the beginning of the show. So just want to say thank you for tuning in and appreciate all the nice comments. Dmitro Krasun, the screenshot one founder, also there, and he's a big fan as well. But everyone is in the indie community, so great that you've managed to build all of this and also to give back, because I think a lot of the stuff that you do at Small Bets ultimately it gives back more than you receive. That's my perception of it. And if that's just marketing, then so be it. It's good marketing. But I really appreciate all that you do. And
thank you.
Here's the last question.
Yes.
Are you ready? What is one secret to this that you haven't shared anywhere else so far? You've shared a lot of things, but one thing that you just kept for yourself and never really quite had the courage to put out there. Can you say it from the top of your head?
Interesting. I think maybe something that I've undershared. It's there somewhere, like, because I share so many things in detail. Like I share spreadsheets of my finances, and I try to answer every question that I get. That's probably it's covered somewhere. But I think probably one of the underreported things that I don't share a lot is the regular look. If you look at my success, like I think one of the screenshots you took for that mini booklets, I had my revenue per year or whatever. Looks like it's growing in a linear way, and everything is peachy and rosy. But I think if you were to zoom down into my life on a day-by-day basis, week-by-week basis, there's lots of stressors where things are not going very well, right? I mean, things were going good last month. Now they're actually down 70%, right? And what do I do about it? And I really struggle to communicate this because I don't think it would resonate. It's because it's not resonate. I haven't yet found a valuable way to share this stuff, because like, what do you say? Like, again, like I try to, again, part of the show, part of it, right? It needs to be something useful to the audience, right? If I'm just saying, oh yeah, this week, for example, last week, I think was one of my worst revenue sales in many years, probably in 3 years. And this might sound like a big problem, but actually I get things like this relatively often where there's something going wrong. And there's a lot of things that I do that again, like it's all related to adaptation, like I described before. Right? It's like, okay, first of all, is this noise? Is it just, just one random, there's always going to be some worst week, right? Or is it some signal? And then you start to look at other things. And what do you do about it, right? How to adapt. I don't know if this is a secret, right? But maybe it's something that I haven't managed to be very transparent with yet in detail. And part of it may be because there is a bit of a concern, right? Of, nobody wants to say something is not doing, like one of their businesses is not doing well, because it's sort of almost negative social proof. Right, so that's some hesitation there. But if you go to smallbets.com, for example, right now, and I have the live counter, this is driven from the database, 82 people joined this month. I never remember, since we put that counter on, I never remember that being lower than 100, right? And this is, this is a problem, right? Because, I need this to be, my target is at least 150 per month, right? For the business to sort of continue to be where it's doing. So what do I do with this? I don't know yet, right? But I have lots of ideas. And I bring this as an example. This is not like a crisis, like it's not like panicking, whatever. Because I would say something like this, some variation like this happens probably once every 6 months. I have something that I was hoping is going to be doing so much, and now it's not doing this. What do I do about it? And I really believe how you react to these stressors is very important. But it's one of the things that I don't know how to articulate yet in a useful way.
I love what you said, in a useful way.
Yeah, like, because I feel like I'm getting better at these things, that it's sort of, these things don't even, I wouldn't say they don't worry me, but it's part of the game now. It's just, I've done them, I've recouped enough time. So I wrote once I tried, right? I wrote a blog post cheekily titled "Variable Income Makes Me Smarter," where I tried to explain how these dips, it is a bit of a reflection before, after my life as an employee versus self-employed. When I was an employee, I was getting a regular paycheck, to precise, to 2 decimal places every month in my bank account. I knew exactly how much I was going to be making. That was, things were very, very predictable. When I started working for myself, I was getting these spikes, especially in the very beginning, where I only had like 1 or 2 products on the market. I was getting, 1 month I make $30,000. The next month I make, $6,000. And then I knew, put something out and make a big spike, and it was all over the place. And at first I thought, again, my first reaction was, oh my God, how I'm going to be able to reason about the future if I can't really know how much money I'm going to be making this month or next month. But then I started to realize that I almost need these dips, right? I mean, actually, I almost go on autopilot where things are going smooth, right? I almost became complacent, right? It's sort of, and I've went through periods here in small bets. For example, there were periods 2023, like the second half, 2022, almost all of it. I think they were just growing on their own without me doing anything. And just my brain almost can't really be productive when things are, it's just, why bother going to work? Right? I mean, things are doing well. So I almost need these stressors for me to adapt, right? I mean, I need something to go wrong, to me to learn something new, to stretch myself, to reconsider, to analyze things better.
This is such a positive way of thinking, and it's such a good way also of thinking in like the work that we are, because if you're gonna like have these dips, and we all have them, but if you're gonna like fall on them and be scared of them, but having that creative mind where you need to figure out what's next step is just brilliant.
What's next? How do I adapt? Right? I really think this is a fitness game, fitness with the market, right? So like fitness, we use it usually for, health and fitness with our environment, and to be fit with the sort of, with our head. But I think there's another fitness with the market, and the market changes, the world changes. We change, my availability for how much work I can do changes depending on the lives we're living. So it's always trying to find, okay, this is how much time I have, this is how much energy I have, this is what the market seems to need, this is what the market seems to not want anymore. Like I was telling you with the live classes before, like I'm seeing a diminishing interest. What do I do, right? Okay, let's try this, let's try that, and small bets. That is why I really like it. It's very meta now, right? But saying small bets within this small bets community as a product. So I don't know if this sort of answers the question very well, but I think it's probably the thing that I wish I were able to articulate better, and it's a bit of a secret, because I feel I got good at this, but I'm almost hiding it from people, not intentionally, just because I don't know how to explain it. Not to, but I think it's like an athlete. How you go to, Djokovic and ask him, how do you hit the tennis ball very well? He probably won't be able to explain it, not because I'm that level, but because I think some things are just, you just need to live it, right? To know that, to learn. I think there's a technical term for what I'm trying to say, right? There's like this knowledge that it's just hard to describe.
It's a
Thank you
superpower.
for sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing. This is precisely what I wanted to hear, to be honest. So I appreciate being open and sharing something that maybe you could read it in between the lines, but I think, as you say, you don't talk about it much. But I think it's important to also have this in mind. Especially, I always feel people see what we do online and then they might get motivated to start their own thing. And sometimes they don't know what they're getting into. And truthfully, no one does until you've started, right? That's fair.
Yeah.
No one really knows how this is going to
Not
pan
even
out.
until you started, even once you started, right? I mean, there's uncertainty all the way, right? It's that.
Yeah.
This is the game.
Yeah, but it's sometimes nice to also hear the other side of it and to get the complete picture. So thank you so much for that.
Sure.
All right.
Now we need an update on PDF before we end the podcast, please.
Yeah, I mean, it could have went a bit better. Our website seems to be flagged. Like we just hit on a name that seems suspicious. And I don't know, I looked, is there a swear word or something in between? So I could share the lemon squeezy link, but the website, I'm still having issues. So I think I'll just change the domain slightly. So, you know, you win some, you lose some, as we discussed.
This is what exactly we're talking about.
Yeah. Failure is glorified, right? So let me get a small win, which is we got to get some praise from Daniel for making the PDF in the first place. So I take that, and I'll take that learning. So thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Daniel. You're really an inspiration, and there's so much we can learn from you.
No, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm a new fan of the show, so we'll be looking forward to your new episodes with other people.
Thank you so much. Sandra, do you want to close it down?
Oh, I can't get used to this. But thank you everyone for watching. You can listen us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. Am I missing something, Dan?
Instagram,
Instagram.
We can just say all the social media.
All the social media, I think so. That's the best one. We have a lovely Discord channel. You can join us on morningmakershow.com and see you for the next episode. In the meantime, have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Perfect.